All right, so just as expected, we're seeing the Bitcoin dominance get a little bit of support here as we see altcoins taking profit today, selling into Bitcoin. Bitcoin pretty much moving sideways. But we're going to look at this Bitcoin dominance chart here because we know that this flipped bullish in January of 2023 right here. And we've been on this bullish uptrend for Bitcoin dominance for quite some time. And now that we're nearing the end of the Bitcoin cycle, we are getting a lot of speculation, a lot of altcoin season anticipation. You can really feel the sort of greed coming back into the market as we got this 1 week of altcoins pumping and outperforming Bitcoin. But now we're looking at it on the weekly, really holding on to this 60% level, a really key level for Bitcoin dominance. You can see we're still trying to hold on to this 50 period moving average on the weekly as well, getting a little bit of support there today to start this weekly chart off. We've got 4 days left in the week, so we'll have to see how this candle closes. If we get back up above it, we can potentially see a further rally of this chart as we see more and more altcoin profit taking coming back into Bitcoin. Ultimately, I think there also will be a little bit of Bitcoin selling into the USD or into USDC stablecoins. So we're going to look at the stablecoin dominance as well because that seems to be on the rise. But really, just interesting to see this support coming in. Really key area to start taking profit if you've been long some of the altcoins, Ethereum, Ripple, etc. So really solid move here on the altcoins coming in on the daily now. Looking at the dominance chart, it does look like it could continue a downtrend lower on this chart, but I do think that we will rally back up into this moving average, and we will continue to see altcoins bleed and sell back into Bitcoin as we see a lot of altcoin profit taking. All right, so let's look at the Bitcoin USD chart. Also down 2% today, a little bit of a pullback. Still really chopping around, guys, at this 141 extension level on the Fibonacci sequence. And looking at it on the daily, we can see we're pretty stretched out away from that 50 period moving average, right? So a lot of sellers are thinking we maybe need to have a bit of a sell off, right? We need to come down and test this base of support at around 110K because we know that this was the only retest of 100K that we saw. It got gobbled up really quick, did not last long, popped us back up into 110, and then we pushed up higher. So ultimately, I think we're starting to see momentum fade a little bit. Let's pull up the RSI. We're watching this really closely. We're looking for any sort of divergence that we can spot in the RSI. We know we did get up into the 70% level, so still pretty much overbought here on the daily Bitcoin chart. Losing a little bit of momentum, we can see a bit of divergence here on this RSI. Divergence meaning we're seeing a bit of a downtrend in the RSI, and you can see the RSI is actually coming into this trend line as well, coming off of that as resistance. So I would not be surprised, guys, to see a pullback in the crypto market. We know that euphoria has reach a pretty significant level once you get coins like Ethereum, Ripple popping off. So typically when that happens and everyone's pretty confident that everything's going to 10x is when the market takes a bit of a turn. So I am expecting a bit of a pullback, through July, maybe even August. We could see a bit of a consolidation through the summer, as we look at some potential pathways for this price action. Zooming in now into the 4 hour, we can see this 4 hour is really just trying to hold on to the 50% control on the RSI. It hasn't been oversold for quite some time. I would not be surprised to see this kind of pull back down into the 30% oversold level on the 4 hour, right? Representing a little bit of a trading opportunity here. We also know, guys, that there is a pretty big gap. I know I sound pretty bearish right now, but I think you got to separate that from the long term. I think Q4 will get extremely bullish. I do not think that this is going to be ultimately the top of the market cycle. I think there's higher to go, but I am looking for a bit of a pullback, right? We need to consolidate at these levels. So let me go ahead and pull on the fixed range volume profile, and we'll take a fixed range here from June of 2025 to today, And we know that there is a pretty big gap. So a lot of volume building here at this 118 level. We know a lot of I've been seeing articles of diamond hands, people who've been holding Bitcoin for 14 years or 10 years, long term holders. They're getting out, and I know the average exit price for them has been around 18.5. So that's really really interesting to see this volume profile building up a point of control up here. But we know that if we slip below 116, then it's going to be a pretty nasty sell off right on these lower time frames, back down into this old point of control at around 110. So that's about a 6% sell off. We've seen altcoins selling off, 10, 15% today, as the traders are taking profits. But I would not be surprised, guys, to see a move down, even 8.5%, something like that, down into some of these old levels. Because I know if you jump over to the Bitcoin futures chart, there also is a very obvious gap here. As you can see, the gap trade is one of the highest probability trades there is, and we know that we gapped up over the weekend here in on July 10th. We gapped up, so you can go ahead and expect with like an 80% probability that this gap will close. We'll extend that to the right, and we can see that this represents. See, we've been kind of flirting with it. We've been testing this little gap area as support right here once, twice, but for a true gap close, you need to come down and close the open, sorry, the close of the where the gap began, right? So you can see, I'll just delete this. We really are looking for a retest of at least 115, but you got to give it a little bit of room, because if that happens, if we do get the 115, it's probably, it'll get initial jump, but we can probably anticipate that we'll probably be a little bit bearish through the rest of July into August. That's my prediction. I do think once we get into the fall of September, October, November, we will hold on to this bullish trend on the higher time frames, on the daily and the weekly, and we'll be able to gobble this up and hopefully push higher into 150 and 175, perhaps 200. But right now it is looking a little bit shaky here at the top. A lot of the indicators still are not quite getting the fully oversold kind of move that we're looking for. This is very much a consolidation on lower volume, and not a whole lot of price action going on here for Bitcoin. So that makes sense. I see this gap, guys, as a very, very important level to close, right? The gap trade is a very probable trade where you can anticipate that this will eventually, price will want to come down eventually, whether it doesn't happen in this point, it comes up and we continue the bull run. I will still have my eyes on this target for even perhaps the bottom of the next bear market cycle. But this gap will close. We will come back down into 114 eventually. That I can tell you based on this Bitcoin futures chart. All right, and then we can take a quick look at Ethereum. So let's go ahead and look at the ETH BTC chart. I think I just saw it. There we go. So let's pull up the ETH BTC chart. We can see this is sort of started to turn around. It kind of is an inverse of what you'd expect on the Bitcoin dominance chart. So that's the 1 hour. The 1 hour you can see really turned over right here, pushed back up and held on to resistance on that 50 period moving average on the 1 hour. Now you can see the RSI getting a little bit oversold right on the 1 hour. Let's see what that 4 hour looks like. Okay, so the 4 hour is wanting to cross over as well. We've sort of broken that 50 period moving average on the weekly. So this is what I'd be looking at, right? If this is coming down, ETH BTC, it usually means Bitcoin is also selling off, but not quite getting as bad of a sell off as Ethereum. So this also would this sort of top formation, almost looking like a little head and shoulders on the 4 hour, also give me a little bit more, uh, proof that there will be some more profit taking in the crypto market. What I would do for Ethereum BTC now is I would take a fib. This is just a beautiful bottom formation here on the, as you zoom out and look at the daily, we had this massive pump, pull back into the 50% fib, and then up into the extension levels. So now I'll be taking a fib here on this ETH BTC. I still think this is probably going to be bullish, especially as we get bullish into Q4. I'm not, completely eliminating the possibility of a altcoin bullish, euphoria season that could potentially happen. But I am trying to set my expectations for when and how big that move can actually be. But as of right now, I could see also, if you pull up this other indicator that I have, the MACD, let's just zoom into this. This is extremely, extremely blown up to the long side. You can see we've never had an extended MACD this high on the ETH BTC chart on the daily. Pretty significant level here. So this has actually started to flip bearish. We can see that the bar here for today of July 23rd has actually lost momentum. So that gave us the signal on the chart that you see here, this little diamond indicator. It's predicted in the past times of potential downside. It predicted it way back here before we went on this massive bear market. So I think ultimately we have a lot of room back. We have a lot of room to get back to this 50%. This 50 period Fibonacci on the daily. Not Fibonacci. The 50%, the 50% Fibonacci is right here. I think we'll probably come down into 38.2. But the 50 period moving average is what's going to be key for support. We need to hold on to this moving average way down here at around 0.25, 0.025. It will come up. I think we'll meet this moving average at some point, towards the end of July and towards the middle of these moving averages. I think 0.25 is going to be a very, very big level for ETH BTC to hold. I think it will. I have a feeling even when we get up to like 0.26, something like that, I think this would be a key level to maybe shift some BTC into ETH as we get this pullback and a continued rally higher. Because I do see on the larger time frames, you can see that we've had this bear market for quite some time, and I think this flipped bullish. And I think right now we're getting a little bit of resistance off of these previous lows. You can see if I go like this and just draw a horizontal ray from these previous support levels, you can see that's exactly where we got resistance on this ETH BTC chart, right? You look left because that structure is going to leave clues. So once we broke this floor and we started selling off, that became a key level of distribution. Once we got up to it, bang, distribution. And it's also 0.33, right? 0.033333. That'll be a big number. It's just a psych level, right? It's significant level. So that's why we're pulling back on this ETH BTC chart as well. So that's going to do it for today's video. I will try to update you daily going forward. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.